I'm going to share with you today the 5 most common causes I see daily, weekly, monthly with my students that causes them issues in regard to strike. Not only am I going to tell you why this happens, I'm going to give you 5 amazing fixes to transform your ball striking to make you play better and be happy. And these are all things we all struggle with. So the most common shots we see are fat and thin or top. And this happens with all golf clubs through the bag when we're hitting the ball off the ground. So we're going to look at why those 2 horrible shots happen. You've hit a great drive and then you go and waste it by doing a shot where you move it literally 5 or 10 yards, or it might scuttle on a bit further. So we're going to look at the causes. The first cause we're going to look at is dynamic balance. Now what that means in English is basically your body, how it shifts from side to side. Now one of the big things we see with golfers when they struggle with contact is through the golf ball, their sternum and head are moving backwards in order to either get the ball up in the air because they see that as success, or as a correction from a fault that's already happened in the golf swing. If your swing is overplaying this way, cutting across the golf ball, you will normally lean back to get the club on ball and to reduce the amount of that club is traveling across the ball. So quite often it's a fix from a previous fault. But if we manage to turn through the golf ball correctly, even if our playing wasn't perfect, we should still make solid contact, unless it's very extreme. But the solid contact would probably take the ball in a direction that would be either straight left or a massive slice. So if I'm here and I make sure I turn through the golf ball, if my playing's not perfect, I'll hit a pull shot like that one, or you might well find if the face is open, the ball will fade back, but it will be solid and it'll get in and around the green. Compared to a fat and thin, it's a lesser of the evils for sure, and it's definitely a step forward. And once we've got solid contact, then we'd look to be fixing the direction of the shot. So they were mostly focusing on what's going on at contact. So we've got a dynamic balance that's moving back. How do we stop that? Well, I would work quite hard on trying to feel that this lead shoulder goes forward, slightly behind the lead hip and lead knee, but we feel that transfer of weight happens and then we turn onto the golf ball. Now, the best way of feeling we fix that is to do some simple exercises. Let's give you 2 very simple ones. The first one would be if we took a setup as normal, ball position here for the 7-iron for me would be in the center, and I move that ball position forward about 2 golf balls. Now if I continue hit golf balls from there, eventually I am going to learn to move onto that golf ball and make solid contact. And making me move forward will help contact. We have to watch the sequence. If my upper body gets too dominant, my lower half doesn't move laterally, then that can cause sequence issues. But in terms of contact, it'll certainly help. The second exercise I'm going to give you now will help with sequence and moving forward, so it's probably the better of the 2. But certainly from a short-term fix, both of these will help contact. The second exercise is very simply what we call step and hit. And we're looking to move our pressure forward more. And again, when you're hanging back, you won't be able to do this. So it's really just taking the normal setup, moving your feet across here behind the golf ball and retaking the club head behind the ball. And as you get halfway back, stepping out and turning through the golf ball. So it's kind of like that. And that will guarantee you getting your body weight and pressure through that golf ball, more so to help stop that dynamic balance working back. Fault number 2, we're going to look now at the lever system. So the levers are really how these wrists interact, if you like, with the arm. So this is what I call dumping the lever system or casting. And people who cast generally will have their low point before the golf ball. We have to shift an awful lot to stop that happening. So what we're going to work quite hard on within this little section is to try and make sure we don't dump our lever system early or cast the club early. So essentially it's normally from the hands pushing away too early, widening the swing too early. Sometimes that's in a correction from a club face that's very open to try and close that club face or square it up. Sometimes it's again because of poor sequence. If the chest goes forward, the arms go away, the wrists kind of throw themselves out there too early. So what we're going to try and do is feel that when we swing down, we feel that we maintain these wrist angles a little bit better. They are going to widen slightly, that's what happens, and if you see me do a video on this area, I will talk about them widening slightly. So I'm not going to be contradictory today and say it doesn't. What I'd like you to do is take your thumbs off the grip, swing to the top of the club, and just swing it down fairly naturally from there without letting your thumbs touch the grip. That'll give you a great sensation of maintaining that lag angle a little bit better. It's not about being perfect, but we certainly want to feel that we're not pushing our thumbs away. We're keeping our thumbs off, and we're going to try and hit, again, a soft shot with our thumbs off the club. To try and feel we can not throw that club away and waste our energy in the wrong part of the golf swing. So the next reason, and we've talked about this very briefly before, is the face opening. So a face that's correct or square would look like this. It's going to be pretty much parallel to my lead arm. An open glove face would be much more toe hanging down. And when we get the toe hanging down, whether it be in the top of the backswing or the start down, we will do what we can to square that face up. And normally that will involve the wrist being active and the body shifting back. So this one is linked to the first two things we've talked about a little bit, and it can be what I would call a deeper cause to those, a reason why you might be doing those subconsciously. However, we still want to feel that this club face gets a little stronger. Quite often as people try and make the backswing longer, they'll cup the wrist and bend their arm a little bit because that's easier. That's easier on the body, that's easier on the flexibility. So we want to get rid of this cupped wrist. We want this wrist to feel it's flatter. And I use that word flatter, not flat. So I'm happy with it being flat, I'm happy with it being bowed. It's a characteristic around how you can move, and they're both absolutely fine. We'd have a different pattern how we move down with all these things. But if you've got a cup wrist, be sure to try and get that wrist flatter at the top to get that club face in a stronger position. You can feel it, you just point the club face to the sky, the right wrist to the sky, in order to help this. Again, how you feel this is very individual. Right arm, right wrist, left arm, left wrist. But what we want to feel is, at the top of the swing, our glove logo points more to the sky, our palm of the right hand points more to the sky. That gets that club face in a stronger position, which means then, on the way down, we will want to use our body more. And turn through the golf ball more successfully. Again, we're getting rid of the reasons why we'd want to not move dynamically through the golf ball, as well as helping us from a directional point of view. Getting this wrist flatter will generally help the plane, the shallowing on the way down, and it will generally help how our body rotates through the golf ball, which helps maintain our lever system. It's a good one to do. If your wrist is cupped, pretty much a no-brainer to try and get it flatter. Again, the average tour pro would have about 10 degrees of wrist extension at the top or cupping at the top, but then they'll move into a very flat state in the way down. Someone like Dustin Johnson would be 40 degrees in what we call flexion, so in a bowed state at the top. And there are other pros that are in a bowed state in the top, much more commonly seen these days. Number 4 is about standing up. So you could have a perfect golf swing, lever system, dynamic balance and so on, but if your swing center moves away from the golf ball, you will, if you do everything else right, miss or top the ball. If you don't do everything else right, you will compensate to try and get the golf ball by normally reaching out with your trail arm. Your trail arm, trail wrist will throw themselves at the golf ball, and this trail wrist will go very much into this kind of more flexion state before contact. If you make good contact, that's going to add a lot of loft, but generally you're going to move the strike lower down the face. You're going to hit it a groove or two low, or you're going to thin it, or you're going to hit the ground before the bow. We want the low point of your golf swing to be up here about 4 inches past the ball. That's where it should be. So if we're standing up, we will normally compensate. So the best way of feeling we don't is to feel, okay, can I tilt, hinge from my hips much more? Can I stand up in my practice swings and then hit the ground on the way down, feel that hinge? And if you wanted to, hit some shots where you do exactly that, and I've covered this before. Stand tall, swing back, make contact. And that there will give you a sense of getting the right tilt, the right posture, staying in posture. It will give you a feeling of not quite rotating through the golf ball for sure, because you're going from a tall position from a short position. But this is about just training that tilt. Then really what we want is to make sure we get through the golf ball correctly, which I'll cover a little bit in my last point. So the last factor for me is more about conceptual. When the ball's on the floor, and particularly when you're a more, let's say, novice golfer or inexperienced golfer, you see success at launching that ball up in the air. That is, oh God, look at that one go. And what it tends to lead to is you feeling that you're going to sweep the ball. So if I sweep the ball, I launch it up in the air, that is success. And conceptually, that's totally the wrong way we want to play. We want to play that we're going to try and hit this ball almost as low as we can, particularly with the club on our hands and our arms, and we want the body almost to feel like it's going up. Because we want the body to be turning and going up and extending, but we want the shaft to be leaning forward and the handle to be going up. So we don't consciously, let's say, try and hit down the golf ball. If this is the shaft, if I try and hit down the golf ball, that's not going to be a good look. If I pull the handle up, you see this works more into line, but again, look at it, it's after contact. So I want you to take a rod, put it on the ground, practice pulling and extending. So this feeling of shifting forward and up. And when we go and hit the golf ball, it's not to sweep. Now when you get a fairway wood out there or a hybrid out there, I hear it all day long on the driving range, and if I play with people, of course, oh, you swept that one beautifully. Well, hang on, there's a little divot after the ball here. There's no sweeping going on. Your intent should be on trying to hit a little bit of a bruising of the ground after the ball. Again, this applies to all fairway clubs. So if I was going to go and hit my little rescue here, the intent needs to be divot after the golf ball, extend up into a big finish, chest to the sky. So let's go ahead and hit one. We're going to try and feel that we can do that. Hit that one great. Little tiny divot. I'd expect the divots to get skinnier as the club gets longer and the amount we hit down on the golf ball gets less. And if, in all honesty, if there lies a standard fairway, hitting slightly down on the golf ball is success and is successful. You know, when we measure on TrackMan, we're probably looking at about a 3-degree down with a 3-wood. But if you were 1 degree down, you'll make great contact. You might not take that divot we see the tour pros take. It's about you being the best version of you, not being a tour player. That's the big message from this video. We need to make sure that we don't hang back, we maintain our wrist angles, and in order to do that, have the club face in a stronger position and feel like our concept is to shift forward. These are the common mistakes I see daily, weekly, monthly with golfers when they struggle with contact off the fairway.